good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're having a great afternoon, Monday so far, and that you're got your lunch with you. Thanks so much for tuning in and joining Melvin and I on today's webinar. Hope you're ready to hear about what's happening in the property market. I sure am. So I'm just going to share my screen for a moment and tell you a little bit about myself and also about Melvin. So this is Melvin. He's our special guest today. He's the CEO and co-founder of the PropertyLimBrothers. And he's our first guest on the lunch hour today. We'll be running a series of webinars once a month, and we're starting with the PropertyLimBrothers. I run a law firm here in Singapore. I mainly specialize in matrimonial and family disputes. There's a QR code over there on the right-hand side. You can just scan it. It links up to our firm website. I also do probate, estate matters. So anything to do with the family, you can call on me. I also do some civil, commercial, and corporate matters and a few criminal matters as well. So you can hop onto my website, Sarah-Mae Thomas LLC.com, or just give me a call. I'll be happy to answer your questions for a consult. I also run a podcast like my guest, Melvin. I run The Legal Eagle. It's Singapore's first legal podcast. And I just basically discuss different social and legal issues. Again, you can hop onto the legaleaglepodcast.com or scan the QR code below to listen to my shows. I'm on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, basically any podcast platform, I'll be there. Okay, so let's get stuck into talking about property. So, right. As you know, I run my own law firm, and some people are asking me, why are you doing a webinar on property? The interesting about family law is that it intersects with so many different areas, and one of them is property. In situations where couples are separating, people need to know when is a good time to buy or sell, because the separating couples in these situations need to see, is it a good time to buy or sell now, or sell the property in maybe a year's time? And this is one question that often comes up in court proceedings, and we actually have to make an application to court to get a court order for the sale of a matrimonial property. And of course, we need to know what's happening in the market to make the application to court. So is this a good time to buy or sell is something we're always asking property agents. So as I mentioned, I'll be hosting a series of webinars every month with different professionals ranging from financial planners to psychologists to child specialists. The lunch hour was really a brainchild of the mix between the Legal Eagle podcast and a webinar. And it was really for you to have an opportunity to hear about these different areas, just so that you increase your knowledge and become more, have a greater understanding about property, about child issues, about psychology, and basically get to hopefully not interrogate, but ask questions from these experts that will come on the show. So with that being said, Melvin, welcome to the show.
Hi, Sarah. Great to be here. Yeah, it's good to see you again.
Yeah,
how have you been?
I've been good. I feel like when was it? In April or May, where you had me on your podcast as well?
Yeah, it's during the circuit breaker.
Circuit breaker, yes. So it's my turn to ask you questions now. Put you in the hot
thanks
seat.
for having me on your show. Yeah, I've been a great fan of your podcast as well. I think you're like one of probably the only lawyer to be doing podcasts in Singapore. Am I right?
I'm a lawyer. I'm a lawyer, come journalist. I'm living my journalist aspirations through my podcast. Right. So I'm enjoying the show. It's been good. Great. But maybe, Melvin, you can tell listeners a little bit about PropertyLimBrothers.
Right. Yeah. So hi, everyone. Great to be here on the legal podcast on Sarah's show. So my name is Melvin, the co-founder of PropertyLimBrothers. So I've been in the real estate business for about 14 years, since my first job as a prison officer. So back then, I was serving as a prison officer with Ministry of Home Affairs for 3 years together with my current business partner, Adrian. Yeah, so 3 years into service, and then we decided to venture out to the real estate market. So it has been 14 years since we've been doing property. At about 3 years ago, we started this brand called PropertyLimBrothers. So this was basically the brainchild after being in the real estate market for about 10, 11 years. And then we started to notice some trends in the market. And predominantly is that what has been bothering us is the way how properties are being marketed in Singapore. So it all started with a marketing kind of problem that we felt that a lot of sellers were experiencing in the market, because the main method of selling a property is literally to become very passive. That means usually a lot of sellers, they will basically have their photographs of their properties being posted on portals, and then they will wait for response to come in. So we deem this as very passive marketing. So we're just pondering, like, is there another way on how we can really bring out the best points of each property, because every property is just so unique and different, and we're very passionate about the real estate market as well. So it all started when we started to film our first video home tour. So back then there were like some videos already in the market. A lot of brokers, they were panning the home, putting some music and stuff, but we're thinking, like, how can we bring this experience to buyers and audiences, so that you can literally just watch the entire video and the home as if you are touring it physically. So we decided to start a version with the presenter in home. Of course, a lot of the ideas were inspired from the US market as well. Yeah, and we started the first one, I believe it's the first in Singapore. That was in early 2017. And then we went on full scale in 2018, 2019, and now. So we have done about close to 650 videos so far on our YouTube channel.
Amazing.
Yeah, and along the 3 years, we also started to realize that it's not just the video content that needs to be compelling. There's a lot of things that we've modified with tech, with team, with social media, digital marketing. And so that's where we are. And we started 2 companies alongside doing property. One is PropertyLimBrothers Media, whereby we have a full-scale 10-man team, which are on our staff payroll to run together with our sales team. The other company is called Affinity Motions. So that is a company that helps all external agents in Singapore to create video content. So we started these 2 companies alongside doing real estate.
That's so innovative. I think it's amazing that you saw a gap in the market, and you looked, like, I'm always looking at what other countries are doing and getting inspiration and filling that gap. So that's really what I think what the PropertyLimBrothers has done. I mean, you see all the US TV shows about these brothers like coming and just transforming these homes, and it's so good that you and Mel and your brother is on in the same company as you as well.
No, he's not my blood brother, actually.
Oh, he's
so
not
actually,
your, okay.
This name was given by one of our clients. So one of our
wow.
clients says that, hey, since both of you are Lim, why don't you call yourself the Lim Brothers? And then we decided to call ourselves Property Brothers.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. But like me, you run a podcast as well, Melvin. So far, so good. Could you tell listeners a bit about that?
Yeah, so we run 2 podcasts. One is So Far So Good. So Far So Good is a podcast whereby similarly like what Sarah is doing, we invite different experts in the market, all the way from renovation, ID, builders, lawyers, mortgage brokers, to talk about different topics that's interrelated to the property market. Yeah, so just coming from an angle to add more value from different perspectives. We also run a second podcast, which is called Nuggets on the Go, whereby you can tune in for very short nuggets daily. Yeah, so far so good. We have paused it for a while because we have a surge of home tours recently. So we're hoping to resume that in January and probably have Sarah coming on second round or something like that.
Okay. Oh, great. It's so wonderful. And I love that you played on the word so far, so good. Right. I love play on words. So hot topic, $1 million question.
Yes.
What's the property market looking like in Singapore post-COVID? Because I think everyone's asking, COVID has just changed the whole property game. Can you shed some light on that for us?
Yeah, so we actually did a YouTube video during the circuit breaker. I filmed it in my bedroom, and we're talking about happening during the circuit breaker and what might happen after the circuit breaker. So back then
Mm.
we were foreseeing that there could be a pent-up demand right after the circuit breaker is being released. So true enough, there has been pent-up about 2 to 3 months right after circuit breaker, because a lot of the buyers that are coming out to buy are actually families that have sold their properties before the circuit breaker and probably during the circuit breaker. So there was a pent-up demand, but right now it has been about 5 months to coming to 6 months since the circuit breaker has ended. What has happened in the market has been very exciting, and I would say it has been very active, and of course is out of the expectation of a lot of families in Singapore, because the market has I would say rebounded quite aggressively. So in terms of like overall price index, Q2, Q3, it is now a positive movement upwards, and across board, all the way from the luxury market to the new launches to resale, and even HDB market that has been tepid for a couple of years, it has also seen a positive upward trend. So I think if I were to come from a broad-based basis, apart from the pent-up demand, for example, why is it that a lot of more people are buying HDB resale right now is because of the wait probably for the BTOs to be completed due to the delay in construction.
I've heard it's taking a while now, the BTOs.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So perhaps some families were thinking, hey, maybe they shouldn't, they wouldn't want to wait like 5 years for the BTO to be ready. They would just go for a resale with the government grants and stuff. On the other side of the market, a lot of factors has been fueling from the external factors and market. So it's always a measure of the demand factors with the supply factors when it comes to property market price trends. So externally, I think there has been a lot of movement. So firstly, of course, with QE that's happening in US, there's a lot of so-called movement in terms of currency strength vis-a-vis overseas and Singapore. So Singapore currency is still strong, which probably has become a safe haven for a lot of foreign investors. Plus, current mortgage now is at an all-time low, so averagely 1.2 to 1.4%. So a lot of people are seeing this as a chance to do refinancing, plus coming into the market to take a mortgage and leverage, provided they, of course, buying a property is all about prudency and doing your financial numbers. Yeah, but I think externally there has been a lot of things that is happening, tension in neighboring countries. And of course, developers' interest for land bids are still strong. Some of the launches are still performing healthily. And I think it's for the fact that a lot of the buyers right now, in the past 12 months, they have been primarily Singapore upgraders. So it's seemingly like we are becoming like a self-sustaining market, because a lot of the buyers are actually Singaporeans ourselves. So I would say with the converging of all these factors, right now we're seeing like upward kind of movement in the property market as a whole.
Okay. So so it sounds like there's like external factors as well from the US, from neighboring countries. All this impacts on property prices in Singapore.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, because Singapore, I mean, foreign buyers, they view us, of course, firstly as a safe haven. They are also aware that our government is stable. We have very strong policies, and government is always very actively ensuring that the property market is not overheated. So, I mean, right now we still have like 8 rounds of cooling measures that is planted into our price index. So, bearing in mind that all these factors are already there, but the price is still so-called moving gradually, healthily. It's also very tough for the government to remove the measures in a sense. Yeah, so I would say that the external factors coming in pretty strongly right now. It also we are also a little bit worried about whether would there be another round of cooling measures if things goes on for another 2 to 3 quarters moving into next year. Yeah, so I would say it's a pretty interesting scenario for Singapore now. I mean, although we just come out from circuit breaker, we're still in the midst of a global pandemic, but this is happening in the property market.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So, does that mean it's a good time to buy? Like, is it a better time to buy or sell, or both?
Yeah. So of course there are two things that I think as Singaporeans we need to be aware of, which is of course whether the unemployment numbers will escalate, of course,
Okay.
and there's a second thing, which is the mortgage holiday, which MAS has granted to Singaporeans until the end of this year. So these two things are definitely at the backdrop that you need to pay attention to. But I think firstly, to answer the question whether is it a good time to buy, I think that there are different kinds of assets that, in our own opinion, which we think are prime for growth on a healthier fashion. One of them definitely will be landed properties. For one reason is that it's quite similar to what has happened in 2008 October after the Lehman Brothers crisis. So in
Hmm.
2009, there was a surge in interest in landed properties. There has also been a very strong upward trend in landed properties starting from 2009 April, and it moved on for a couple of years. So right now, based on my own opinion, I think it's a pretty similar scenario compared to back then, because I think the buyers out there, I mean, buyers and sellers are all very savvy now. I think buyers are starting to realize that the landed property in terms of the per square foot pricing is really pretty close to some of the new launches and resale condos out there. So I think people are going for value, they're going for size, and of course a lot of the landed properties are freehold in nature. So I think landed properties are prime for growth. We're also seeing a lot of interest on big units like four-bedders, penthouses, ground floors. Perhaps is a change in lifestyle because of COVID. So a lot of
Hmm.
people, a lot of buyers out there, they are looking for the extra bedroom, the extra open space for their family, because they
Yes.
probably want to build a home office in at home. They want an extra room for their kids' study room and stuff. So we're seeing a little bit of change in preferences on space and per square foot. Yeah, so I think it is a good time to buy if you are sure of what you're looking for. And of course, after you have done your prudency in terms of affordability, not overstretching. And I think in Singapore, it's important to stay in the market because Singapore not only has demand from local buyers internally, we also have very strong demand from foreigners in all categories, ultra high net worth, and foreign investors as well. So I think it's important as a Singaporean to stay in the market
Hmm.
and not to time it. So you only time it when this is going to be your second or third property investment. But if it's your primary residence, I think it's important not to time the market.
So when you say time, just buy or just be
That
in the
means
market is what you're
Yeah, that means
saying.
if it's for your own family, your own
Hmm.
needs.
Yes.
I mean that firstly, of course, is a purchase that the numbers has to make sense. So of
Yes.
course, do your homework, compare it with the surrounding per square foot and quantum price, compare it within the project. But at the same time, there has to be a balance of numbers with needs. Perhaps you need it because your kid's school is 1 kilometers away, or you want to be near to your parents, and it's really something that you and your spouse would love to live in this area. So I think balancing numbers and needs is definitely needed for your primary residence. I mean stay in the market is that comparing that to renting it for 3 to 5 years, I think in Singapore it's still better to stay in the market for a primary residence. But for your second and third property, is if it's purely for investment reason, or whether is it rental investment or investment gain, then I think you can do a bit of timing depending on what is your investment time horizon. So if it's purely investment, I think definitely you can wait for the right chance. But primary residence, I think it's important not to be out of the market for too long.
Hmm. So
Yeah.
what if someone comes to you and they say, okay, I already have a family home. I want to invest in a HDB flat. Oh, well, I want to invest in a condo, for
Right.
example.
Private
Would
property.
you,
Okay.
a private property, would you
Right.
suggest now is the time or should we wait 1 year?
I think that now my personal opinion is that now is a good time
Okay.
because we are seeing a lot of demand factors converging. So I think if you have that capability, you have that spare funding for additional round of down payment, and your employment, your job is doing okay, your business is doing okay, then I think you can actively look at the market for the next 2 to 4 months, and look at opportunities. There are good deals out there if you do your research carefully.
Okay. And what is this mortgage holiday that you mentioned? My eyes just like open very widely, and I want to know more.
I mean, during the circuit breaker, MAS, I mean, they announced that you can actually write into your bank to so-called postpone your mortgage payments all the way
Okay, yes.
until end of December. Yeah. So I mean, in my own term, I deem it as mortgage holiday.
Yes, it is a holiday. I guess you
Right.
don't have to pay. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. And so what if someone was investing in public, like in a HDB flat as a second home?
Oh, HDB flat you can't invest as a second home.
Second home.
So
Okay.
yeah. I mean, usually the second property is private property.
Okay.
You can of course still own a HDB and a private property, but the HDB has to come first, and then you have to fulfill the 5 years MOP period before you can invest in other properties after that.
So you can't. I didn't know you can't invest in 2 HDB properties at once.
Oh,
It's
you
just-
can't
Okay.
do that.
Okay. And a
Just
question.
one,
Yeah. And a question for foreigners. So foreigners can't buy some properties in Singapore. What are the limitations for foreigners?
Yeah, foreigners, firstly, they can't buy HDB flats unless their spouse is a Singaporean. Then, provided they also fulfill other criteria, then they can buy HDB flat. But foreigners by themselves, they can only go for private condominiums. They also cannot go for landed properties because landed properties on the mainland is only for Singaporeans. So, of course, for some foreigners and permanent residents, if they have the special approval from Land Dealings Unit from Singapore Land Authority, then which is very hard to achieve. So if they have that, then they can buy mainland landed properties. If not, they're only restricted to buying landed properties which are 99 years on Sentosa Cove.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That's something that people I think will be interested to know, because we've got some expats tuning in. Okay, so is it a good time to buy now? So we were talking about selling and buying. I guess your main point is really be in the market if you're looking at a family housing, but if you're looking at investment, primary residence. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Anything else? Like, what happened during like circuit breaker? What was it like during that time? Were you still able to sell properties?
Yeah, so of course, thankfully, at PropertyLimBrothers, we film all our properties that we sell. So we film it with a compelling video home tour, and then we launch it on social media like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and of course on property portals and stuff. And of course, we have visualization tools like 3D walkthroughs. And so, of course, you can see the home tour presentation version. You can also take your own time to roam around the place with the tech tools that we have. So thankfully, because of that practice for the past 2.5 years during circuit breaker, we can still continue to sell the properties that we are representing for the sellers. So I would say during COVID, it has been a strange period for us because we are very active people. You know, our guys are always showing places, having open houses during weekends and weekday nights. So that kind of limitation, of course, is a change for real estate agents. And then we have to then sell some properties virtually. But I think over that 2-3 months of circuit breaker, what we notice is that there has been properties that are being sold virtually, but it's for a very distinct group of buyers. Either buyers that are very sure that they're happy to buy virtually without viewing the actual place because maybe they are already planning to re-renovate the entire place. So they do not really care about the existing condition.
Yeah.
The other group of buyers will be buyers that have seen similar layouts before in the same condominium project, or maybe in a few blocks of HDB flats that they have already viewed similar layout. So they're happy to buy it virtually because they have a timeline to fulfill. Maybe they have sold their place before circuit breaker and stuff. So I would say during the circuit breaker season, there has been deals that are being transacted virtually, and I think it sort of changed everybody's behavior buying properties as well, because everybody instantly so-called like upgraded to know how to use tech at a
Yes.
better and faster rate. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So that was a pretty interesting season for us.
I think we all had to adapt to technology, right? Everyone's like
Yes.
zooming around, and even us lawyers, we're not very tech savvy generally, but we've had to become paperless and tech savvy because of this COVID-19 situation. So
Yes.
I always say it's the silver lining in the
Yeah,
COVID.
I've some friends, some lawyer friends as well. They were saying that, usually their practice as a lawyer is that if any clients want to meet them, is always at the law firm, always meet at the
Yes,
law firm. Yeah, but
yeah.
now it's like
It's on
they're
Zoom.
getting.
There's always an option, and you have, I mean, the traditional law firm is you have the big files, and then you have
Yeah.
to like sift through. But now everything's paperless, so it's like ramped up the development of technology in the legal space. So I think it's been
Yes.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Melvin,
Great.
PLB is one of the first few companies to do staging. I am very impressed with the way you do staging. But how do you do staging for a home? Where do you draw your inspiration from?
Yeah, so for home staging, we have vendors that we partner with
Okay.
regularly. So I would say that staging is a concept that has been started in I think it was in US when it got started. I'm not sure which exact year was that, but it was just like recently, probably over the past 40 years. So I think this concept was only being so-called gradually accepted in Singapore since about 2 years ago. Because in the past, when we sell properties about 10, 14 years back, um, usually the trend is that if you have a vacant home to sell, it's actually quite easy to sell if it's a vacant home,
Mm.
compared to a home with furniture or with the owner still living in it. But I think things have changed along the years, largely because of social media. People are seeing very beautiful things on their
On
phones every day.
Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah, and they see videos on HGTV and stuff like that, on how
Yeah.
people transform and flip houses and stuff. So I think expectations has changed. So the concept comes because of the fact that buyers are having different expectations now, and it's quite daunting actually for somebody to walk into an empty place, having to visualize where to place the furnitures
Mm.
and how the home will look like after they move in. So there's also been studies that have shown that the first 8 seconds when somebody walk into a place, they sort of subconsciously already make a decision whether emotionally do they feel
Yeah.
good about this place. Yeah. And so I think it's important as a seller, let's say if you are planning to sell your home, is to firstly to position your property as a product that you are
Mm.
selling, because after you sell the place, there's no more emotional attachment from your property. And I think the main objective that you want to have is to let your property be more acceptable to a wider range of audience. So thereby coming in the effort to do decluttering, enhancing the home staging, is all to increase the buyer's experience so that you have a better and wider pool of buyer audience. So another way to look at this is to see why are developers putting in so much effort into their show flats. Because end of the day, when you walk into a show flat and you buy a new launch property, the moment you walk out and then let's say you place a deposit, 3 years later you collect your keys, you're walking also into an empty home. Of
Yeah.
course, with fixtures and fittings being done, wardrobes are done, kitchen cabinets are done, but essentially it's still an empty home without renovation. But why are developers putting in so much effort to renovate and then to stage up their show flats? It is predominantly to increase the buyer's experience, and also coming from the point that now 90% of buyers in the market, they are really buying for own stay. So we really want to help buyers to be able to visualize. And there's also been studies that have shown that the moment if you extract furniture from a place, the spatial feeling of the home actually shrinks. So the moment you put in the right furnitures, the spatial feeling expands. Yeah. So
Okay. Wow.
I think all in, yeah, these are factors that gave us inspiration to do home staging for all the properties that we sell, is to create a better experience for both buyers and sellers.
Yeah. Wow. So gone are the days where they just tell you, just put some cookie dough or some bread in the oven and make the house smell nice. But I think people want to visualize, and not everyone has the capacity to visualize. So I think that's wonderful that staging comes in. And because I used to live in Australia, and staging was a very common part of selling property. And my friends would say, oh yeah, we're selling a house. We've got we're recreating this, color palette and all of that. And I used to be very impressed with the concept of staging. So how do your brokers manage to assessment of a home, video, and a story concept? Because I understand you guys do story concept, and then on top of that, you do listing and closing a sale. Like, that's a lot of work for you.
Yeah, so over at PLB, the way that we sell properties, I would say it has evolved. We have this vision from day one that we want to sell properties as a team, because myself and Adrian, we have been primarily operating as a one-man show for a good 10 years.
Wow.
So we realized that how did this vision come about to sell properties as a team is because this all boils down to recreating the customer experience, and we don't want the customer experience to be limited by a one man's time and energy and effort, because as a one man we only have the so-called the capability and the capacity to manage a number of listings at any given time.
Yeah.
So we also want to ensure that we don't lose any opportunities for viewings. That is why we operate as a team. We cover each other's back. Yeah. So coming back to how our guys manage and list a property from start to finish is that we operate as a core team for every listing that we undertake. So every listing comes on board as a project and we look at it as a campaign. And then we onboard a core team that's made out of an expertise team that is very good with the individual role that they are doing. So we have a client support officer, we have a digital marketer, we have the video team that is supporting the entire campaign in terms of content creation. We have a listing lead, listing manager, listing specialist, and on top of that, we also have a home tour presentation team. So I would say that with the core team being onboarded, what every client will receive is that it is the entire strength of different expertise that is very focused and very good in what they're doing. So our mind won't be so-called like spreaded over a large,
scattered. Yeah, it's very intentional.
Right? So, yeah, that's the right word. And we will be able to be very focused on our core tasks. So of course, that also boils down to the culture and how we crafted the culture from day one so that everybody can work cohesively for the benefit of the client to be very excellent in their work. So I would say that from the start, usually what happens is that we try to visualize what we will see if, let's say, we are a buyer that is walking through the particular property that we are selling, because visualizing the buyer's journey is very important. And to be able to think like a buyer, you'll be able to foresee what kind of objections and obstacles the buyer will see.
Yes.
And at the same time, you'll be able to see different plus points and minus points of the home. So I think that capability to be able to visualize the buyer's journey is a very important skill set that our guys have. And then from there, we'll craft the story, we'll craft the video content, and then we'll conceptualize what kind of content we want to curate into different social media platforms. And importantly, I think over the past 3 years, a lot of people has been asking us about how we do our digital marketing. And a lot of people say that digital marketing is an art. But I think we have crafted digital marketing down to a science. And based on our numbers, based on how we see different ads campaign perform, what are the different kind of reactions and numbers that is back end from our digital marketing team. We're able to see where will potential buyers be located at, and then using different methods to bring the content to people's smartphones. I think that helps our sellers a lot over the years, being able to reach out to the right audience. Yeah. So every property, basically, you just need one right buyer to come by. Yeah, but I think importantly is that you need to be able to show enough people, and you need to show the right audience your video home tour content, plus
Yes.
this property is for sale and what are the core plus points and stuff like that. So I think with that, the entire back-end production media team and sales team, they work cohesively to create this entire experience.
Amazing. That's why I think that's why it's so successful as well, because everyone knows PropertyLimBrothers, and they say, yeah, they're big on YouTube, on LinkedIn, not LinkedIn, Instagram and Facebook.
Right.
I think also I like what you shared about it being a science, that you there's also intentionality as well in you creating these teams, and okay, everyone has a different role and we're here to do it together rather than being spread thin and burning both candles on either end.
Burning out, yeah.
Yeah, it's a very good strategy.
Right.
One, I think that all of us can learn, no matter what spheres we're in. We're only human, and I think that's when teams come in and support each other. So I think that's great.
Yeah, and
But
it's fun as well. Yeah, working as a yeah.
Oh, it is. It's more interactive, and yeah, definitely.
Yes.
So, what are some common mistakes that sellers make when they sell a home?
Yeah, so I think the very common mistake that a seller will make when they market their place is that a lot of sellers, they like to launch their properties quite hastily, and having that rush and urgency to quickly put their property on the market. But a lot of times, the moment that properties are being launched hastily, they will lose that initial impact. It's just like when a new product is being launched, we need to ensure that this is launched with a greater level of certainty and confidence. What happens is that when you launch your property out in the market, there will always be an existing pool of buyers that is already hunting for a similar type of property that is probably in the same category as yours. But the moment you launch it hastily, and if you have not pre-planned the marketing campaign, sometimes you might have buyers coming to view your place, but they walk away with a lot of objections and doubts in their mind, and then you lose that chance to impress them. So we always advocate that pre-marketing and planning is so important, which is why you take steps to do decluttering, you take steps to enhance your property, you take steps to do home staging. If there are things that you think you can invest a little bit just to touch up on the place, for example, maybe just a new coat of paint can solve wonders.
Yes.
And recreate that feeling, because maybe your kids have been drawing on your walls for the good 5 years. But I mean, just like my home, my kid is like always constantly drawing on my wall, and but when we want to sell, we don't want to let the drawing or that
affect the
on
sale. Absolutely.
Yeah. So investing a little bit, I think, is crucial, and by doing, I mean, a little bit of home staging, and then I think creating a content that's compelling to bring out the plus point, and then doing very aggressive marketing right on the onstart, I think that can really solve a lot of obstacles that a lot of sellers are facing today. And of course, one last thing is that like what we shared earlier, is to try to visualize, even if you're a seller, try to visualize that, hey, if I'm a buyer walking into my home now, what are some of the obstacles that I will run through my mind, and then thinking of creative ways to bring on different perspective. For example, a most common obstacle that a lot of families face is that when they buy the home as a young couple, they love to knock down walls, and they love to combine 2 bedrooms into one. When they start selling it 5 to 8 years later, they will start hearing comments from buyers that, hey, I'm actually looking for a 3-room that is intact, original layout. It has only 2 rooms. Maybe I need to spend a lot of money to put it back. I'll give this home a miss. You know, they start to hear things like that, and they get rejected.
So would you actually build a new room in those situations?
Okay, so we won't build back the room. We will still market it as it is, but what we will do is that we will use home staging to help buyers visualize. We will use 3D renderings and visualization. Put it in the video. But importantly is to get the actual cost and quotation on how much does it cost to reinstate it. So that when buyers come, you show them the quotation. Because if you don't do that for them, buyers are very busy people. I mean, we're all
Yes.
busy with our profession. I wouldn't
Yes.
come to a home and try to find my own contractors to quote me. You know,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
rather that you have the solution that, okay, putting back this wall is only $4,000.
Yeah.
So at least I walk away. I know that 4,000 is part of my cost that I want to factor in, and then I
Yes.
can still make an offer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
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 that makes sense. Because I mean, I know our generation is very much open space, knocking walls down, but I guess the
yeah,
older generation might not be so pro open space, but I think
yes,
that's really good, presenting options, and
yeah,
that concept of 3D, that technology that you use is very good, because not everyone can think outside the box. So you're presenting people with opportunities and ideas and
yeah,
possibilities, and I think
yes,
that's
yes,
possibilities is the word, yeah.
yes,
So, I mean,
yes.
you've already touched on this, but how would you see yourself as different from other property agents in Singapore?
Yeah, so I think being 14 years in the market now, we are very happy that the market has evolved to today, and I
Yeah,
think it's going to be very exciting moving on with tech, with content, with the way things are going. Of course, a lot of times, people will say, "Hey, a lot of agents are copying you, doing
yes,
video well."
yeah,
But actually, we think that this is very good for us in 2 points. Number one, it keeps us on our toes
yeah,
to continue to be excellent and continue to
yeah,
be creative and innovative. Secondly, is that we think overall it really beef up the professionalism in the market. And overall, I think it's great for consumers. It's also great for professionals like us. So I think overall, we always advocate to our guys that the most important thing is to keep our eyes on our customers and our clients.
mm,
There's no need to worry or look at your competitors, because we want to devote our energy to being more innovative and try to see what are the gaps that we can continue to bring on to the table for our clients. So I think that's the most important thing that we want to focus on.
that's really great. I love the philosophy. Don't worry about the copiers. I mean, that's good because it is creating a better standard for
Yeah,
the property market. But then you're just going to go higher and higher and higher,
yeah,
and inspire
yeah.
others to well
Yes,
to be
yes,
inspired by you. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Okay, so good. So what is PLB's plan for the next 5 years?
Yeah, I think what we are planning to do, and we have already started, is we're developing some tech kind of capabilities,
Okay.
exploring more tech platforms. The core reason is that we want to use all tools that are beneficial for our clients, in order to market their place better, more creatively, as well as better analytical tools for our buyers to make an informed decision. We're also expanding our team in terms of onboarding the right people, the right culture. So I think we are in more or less an expansion mode over the next 2 years. Yeah, so it's really bringing what we do best to more people. At the same time, also enjoying what we do, because we also want our guys to continue to be very passionate about what we stand for. Yeah, so I think it's really expanding that tech capability, becoming more efficient, becoming more creative. And the last thing is that we're also exploring different kind of content to bring onto the video platform to make real estate really exciting. So yeah, we hope that the new content coming on board starting 2021 can bring on more viewership, let audience understand a little bit more about Singapore property market and stuff.
Wonderful. I'm really
Yeah.
excited to hear about these plans, and particularly how you're going to use technology.
Yeah.
So actually, we're going to go into a time of Q&A. So if our participants want to type into the chat any questions you might have for Melvin, now's your time to ask him about the property market. So we'll just wait for, let's see if there's anyone asking questions. Okay, so while we wait for people to type in their questions, if I'm selling my house, what are the first 5 things I should do when I decide to sell my house?
Yeah, so the very first thing is to declutter.
Okay.
The mindset about declutter is that if you can ask yourself this core question, which is, if I were to be able to sell my house right now today, what are some of the things in my home that I would definitely not bring to my new home?
Mm,
So categorize all these items, probably take a post-it note, paste it on the furnitures and the things that you would definitely not bring it to your new home, and then start to give these items away or sell these items away, or start to dispose these items away so that the decluttering becomes easier.
okay.
So the very first step is to declutter, and
Pull
then
a Marie Kondo, declutter.
yeah, you can
Yeah,
watch Marie Kondo. Yeah.
yeah.
And second thing is to enhance. I think it's really to go around your home, try
Mm,
to see what are some of the cosmetic things that you can touch up. Whether is it a paintwork, whether is it a stain on the ceiling and stuff like that. Cosmetic things that you can touch up that will not visually demotivate your buyer audience. So
okay.
I think by enhancing it, it really adds on a lot of plus point when you do that showing physically. And third thing is, I think, to visualize your buyer's journey. So as mentioned, to try to think, if you're the buyer right now, what will be some of the core concerns that you will see when you tour around the home? What are some of the obstacles that you might see? And then try to think of solutions to creatively bring about different perspectives. Yeah.
Yeah,
Then I think then the next two steps will be really to create a compelling content, by creating that content so that you can then use this content to do more aggressive marketing to the right audience. And of course, the last step would be aggressive marketing, which means that, because the core objective is that if you are selling a property, you definitely want to set a timeline. Like, I want to
mm,
exit within the next 3 months or next 6 months, and doing very aggressive marketing during this time horizon that you have planned, I think it is important, because that there has to be an objective to meet. If not, why do we want to spend so much time on this entire exercise, right? So
mm.
so those are the five things. I think: decluttering, enhancing, visualizing, content, and then marketing.
That's great. Okay, so those are the top five things to do. Well, top things to look out for. Okay. And how about if I'm buying a home? What do I need to look out for in terms of just just concepts? I guess good location. They always say
Yeah.
location, location, location. Is that true in Singapore?
Yeah, it's true. Definitely, I think location is still the number one thing. Of
Okay.
course, location also comes with affordability, and I think Singapore is so small, which I think there are also opportunities in different parts of Singapore, because our government is so smart to build different town centers. Even if you're at the suburban region, or if you're at the city fringe region, there are core centers that you can buy properties around, if you want a lot more buying factors in future. So I mean, apart from location like the train station and being at the town central region and stuff like that, there are other things that probably are unseen to the naked eye, which is one core thing that a lot of people do not realize, is that the way that valuations are being determined in Singapore is a little bit different, because the transaction volume of every condo development or every apartment development, it inevitably will affect your valuation numbers after a few years. So I think, apart from looking at location, it also boils down to specific individual project as well. Looking at the transaction volume, looking at what has been the past 12 months of transaction per square foot pricing that has been done. What are the other transaction PSF that has been trending over the past 3 months in your surrounding projects as well? Doing that comparison to see whether are you overpaying for something, or are you seeing an opportunity in certain projects? Because sometimes, if you look at a specific location with, let's say, 5 to 8 different projects, there will be opportunities for different projects to have some price gap, because some projects has moved up, but some projects have not moved up yet.
Mm. Yeah,
So
yeah,
you can look for that disparity. We call
yeah.
that a disparity effect. Yeah.
Oh, okay. There's one question that's come in. Okay, so what's your view on investing in a property that is potentially going for en bloc sales? Would you invest in a property with only a view to keep the land value? Okay, so that's two questions. So maybe let's do one by one. What's your view on
Yeah.
investing in a property that's potentially going for en bloc sales?
So en bloc, of course, I think in Singapore there are some en bloc trends. Usually based on estimation, is like the en bloc fever usually comes on like close to one every 10 years. Of course, the last round we had was like in 2018. So usually you will see en blocs happening with larger projects first, and then as some projects got successfully en bloc, a lot of other projects will then start to have this trend. Committees within projects will start forming, and then they will start calling for tender. But en bloc always ends when there is no developers tendering for the en bloc plots, because the asking price is simply too high. So and then the fever will then move on from larger projects to smaller developments, because they are a little bit more palatable for developers to buy them. So that usually has a slight trend, in our opinion, that we notice. But I think importantly is that if you are planning to buy something that is going to en bloc, it will be perhaps better to ask yourself, like, what is the core objective? Is it because you want to be in that project to be able to realize the gain after the en bloc? But then you have to take into consideration the 3-year seller stamp duty that you will incur. Secondly is that, are you buying the project because you like that project, you like to live in it, but then it seems like there is a trend that it might go for en bloc soon or in future? Then it'll be good to ask yourself, are you happy to do that if the en bloc is successful? Because that means you have to move again, or maybe after factoring in your seller stamp duty, the gain might not be so much. And thirdly is that if you're planning to hunt for projects that has a potential to en bloc, is also to know that end of the day, sometimes en bloc might not happen so easily, because apart from looking at projects with en bloc potential, like there's a lot more GFA to go, there's a lot of open space to go, but there's always this inherent factor that cannot be predicted, which is the demographics and profile of the current owners. Because the final thing that must happen is that there must be a consensus with a minimum percentage that must be met. So so if the demographics of the owners there is that they really don't want to exit, so sometimes even if you look at the land plot, you look at GFA and stuff, it might make sense for en bloc to happen, but there will just be a factor that you cannot control. And then people might then wait for 10 years and 15 years, and the en bloc didn't happen, and they become disappointed. So I think end of the day is really to balance out all these factors, and then to see whether are you comfortable to enter such a development.
Okay, so we've got a few questions coming in. So the second part of that question was, would you invest in a property with only a view to keep the land value rather than immediate redevelopment?
Okay, so I presume this will be on landed property. That means like buying a landed property that is probably with an older house that's sitting on top of the land. I think if you were to buy that property with the land itself, looking at the way landed properties are moving, I think definitely is good to keep a freehold land. Provided I'm not sure what situation you are in now. Maybe you are planning to maybe just spend 50,000-60,000 just to renovate the interior, and then have your family live in that single story house or the slightly older building, and then maybe after 3 to 5 years you want to tear down and rebuild. I think this plan has been is a pretty popular option right now that is happening in the market. Quite a fair bit of buyers are doing that. There are also buyers that buy older land for immediate redevelopment. But there are also a lot of families that are buying land right now at the current price, and then just living in it for a little while, or maybe just renting it out for a little while, and then waiting for probably the right time once you're ready to redevelop it. So I think both options are pretty popular in the market now, because it seems that especially inter-terrace land right now, or maybe semi-D lands that are lower or more reasonable in terms of the asking PSF pricing, it has a lot of strong demand that is happening right now on the market. Yeah, so sometimes when we see data that is being published on papers, it's usually what has happened 3 months ago. So usually it's a lagging indicator for 3 months. And what is happening right now on the ground is that the lender market is really hot. Yeah, so there are a lot of buyers that are coming in, and they're really looking for landed properties to purchase.
Okay. Okay, so we have 5 more minutes and we have 2 questions. So Melvin earlier mentioned about mortgage holiday. How can a buyer request for this? Who should the request be made to? Bank, Ministry of Law? Have any cases been resolved?
Right to so it's definitely on your bank's website. Yeah, so you can just head on to your bank's website. There will be a link for you to click on, and then you can apply for that. But that is ending in December 31st. Yeah, so I'm not sure whether now is still possible to apply for that. But you can check with you can just give a call to your bank or visit your bank's website, the bank that you took the mortgage from.
Okay. And they're asking, have any cases been resolved? I suppose the question is yes, right? I think maybe they mean, have there been people...
Approved, is it?
Sorry?
Oh, as in, has any cases been approved?
I think maybe that's the what they're trying to ask.
Yes, this is something that MAS has given. Yeah, so it is something that it will be approved. Yeah, so of course there are various conditions by different banks, but I think it's like a measure to support the Singapore market and of course homeowners during the COVID season. Yeah, so yeah.
Okay, great. Last question. What would you advise for buyers looking to buy their second property, but yet would like to circumvent ABSD? Does buying second property still make investment sense given current high pricing?
Yeah. So I think buying a second property, the most important thing is to know what is your core objective. Because sometimes families, they buy a second property with the intention that, hey, I hope to see a gain in 3 years. And then if they don't see a gain, they become disappointed, because if the price don't appreciate as much as they hope that it will be, or maybe if the price is stagnant even after 3 years, then they find that it's a hassle to hold on to the property investment, especially with their down payment into the second property. So I think importantly is to know that property investment is having an additional property that you leverage on, and you must be ready that you have to maintain it being a rental property if the growth in the overall pricing has not appreciated over the years. So maintaining a rental property is like another part-time business. You need to know that there are things that you have to do as a landlord. There are repairs to be made. You have to find brokers to market the place, to look for new tenants. You have to pay a higher property tax. You have to continue to pay the MCST and stuff. So it's like a second part-time business, or if you have a third property, it's like a third part-time business. So I think importantly is to know yourself, whether are you comfortable to have property investment as an investment vehicle, or are you better off buying stocks and shares and bonds and stuff like that. So but the core reason why people want to invest in property is, firstly, of course, is to counter inflation, and of course is we are in Singapore, so it's a bit different. Property is seen as a physical asset, as a safe haven, and our land is just so limited and so scarce. And of course, if the population on white paper is going to be realized in 10 years' time with 6.9 million, it seems that Singapore is really a place that a lot of people are converging towards too. So I think these are a lot of factors why Singaporeans themselves, they want to go for a second property, to hold on to additional physical asset. And it also boils down to the fact that whether are you happy to do decoupling. If let's say both your names are in your first property, are you happy to do that? Having each spouse to hold on to one property, So these are all different factors that you will have to consider.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Melvin,
Okay.
for.
Sorry.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So I haven't answered the question on the ABSD. So
Okay, no
the only
worries.
way to so-called circumvent it is to decouple. If you're a married couple, if you're a single person, then there's no way to circumvent it um, unless you buy something in trust. That means you buy something as a trustee. I mean, having that property to be meant as a gift for one of your children. So yeah, these are the most common ways.
To do that. Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much for sharing your insights, Melvin. It's been
All
so
right, you're welcome.
insightful. So for our listeners, you can contact me. I've got my information on the left-hand side of the screen and Melvin on the right-hand side. So once again, thank you so much, Melvin, for sharing insights into what's it like post-COVID. I wish you all the best for what you're doing. You're doing
Thank you.
amazing stuff, and I think you're one of the main leaders in the property market in Singapore. So
Thank you.
yeah.
You too. Yeah.
Okay,
Take
Melvin,
care,
have a
Sarah.
good day. Take care.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.